Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a couple of interesting videos for you guys. I'm actually going to be uploading two today about two different things. The first one that we have right now is about the intel that was added yesterday. I'm going to be going over all of the locations of the intel, discussing how you can get it, and then later we're going to be talking about the overall story and what this adds to the Warzone story as a whole. And it's actually really important for the Warzone story. And in fact, it's also important for what is coming within Season 5. Now, that is what the second video today is going to be about, all of the Season 5 teasers and what is going on with that. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That'll be coming out later today. But as far as this video, we are going to be talking about the intel that was added yesterday, where you can find it, where the locations are, and discussing the story implications behind it. And it doesn't appear as though the story is big for this intel, but in fact, this might be the most important story yet, and it ties all of the pieces of intel that you have found so far in Warzone together. So, without further ado, let's dive into it, and first of all, discuss where you can find all of the intel. So this new intel is titled New Perspectives, and the description of it is Uncover the Truth Behind the Airport Attacks. Now this is interesting because the very first piece of intel we were given at the beginning of Season 4 was titled Find the Cause of the Airport Attack, so you'd think you already knew the truth about it. Anyway, when you go and look at the first intel, it shows you this very clearly in Millbase. Now, I do have to say, the first time I went for this on my account, it was glitched. I couldn't do it. I actually had to use a subscriber's account to find all of the intel. Apparently, this glitch is super common. It just doesn't work for people. You go to it, you can't pick it up. So if you're having that problem, as of right now, there is no fix for this. I'm sorry. I wish I could say something like, start the game 3 times, turn around 6 times, and all of a sudden it works, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So hopefully they fix this soon, but I will still go through all of the intel, and thank you to my subscriber who let me use his account. So the first piece of intel is found inside Millbase. Go in Kill House, hop up on the wall, and there's a little coin on the wall. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll probably see the prompt to pick it up before you actually see the coin, and boom, you found your first piece of intel. So the description of the next piece of intel says, begin the search for the UAV. And the intel itself says, Arm 4 team had intel from UAV reconning the airport attack. By the way, Arm 4 is Armistice. We need to find it. Start at Arklov Military Base. So Arklov Military Base is just Millbase. So when you go there, if you actually look back at the first clue, the thing that you can see in the background is kind of like the air traffic control tower at Millbase. If you go there, you will actually be able to find the next clue. It's in the top of the tower. There's a bunch of papers on the ground. You go there, you pick it up, you get your next piece of intel. The description of the next one is that the UAV was being controlled from the airport. So already we know we're going to airport for the next piece of intel. Now, when you actually look at the intel, you see a piece of paper. It says time 2:15 p.m. Departure Millbase, destination Verdansk Airport, Arm 4 forward operating base, weather clouds. And then the serial number is UAV 44901. The only real important part of this paper is it says description, C-130 tarmac controlled. So when I first read this, I thought we had to go to one of the C-130s that is at the airport. However, that's actually not the case. What it is saying is it was controlled from that area. So if you go to the mobile homes around where all the C-130s are near airport, that is where you're going to find your next piece of intel. It's in the right mobile home. You go inside there, there's a computer, and you can pick up the next piece of intel. So the description of this intel is the downed UAV was being repaired. So this one is a manifest, and really the only important parts of this one is the destination is scrapyard, and there's a sticky note on it that says sent to scrapyard for diagnostics. So this is pretty straightforward. You have to go to scrapyard. Now there is a little bit more to it. If you've played a lot of Warzone and you've been to Boneyard a lot, you'd know that there's actually a hangar with a downed UAV inside of it. And of course, that is where the UAV that's being repaired actually is. Now, the fifth piece of intel says a corrupted image could give a clearer picture. Now, unfortunately, when you actually go and look at this piece of intel, it's glitched. This is not what it's supposed to show you here at all. This is the final piece of intel that you're supposed to be given, but it gives you this. However, people have actually been able to find where this intel is. It's downtown. If you go to the Parliament building, right in the middle, go to the desk in the middle of the building, boom, you can find the final piece of intel. And as I said before, once you actually go and look at this intel, the description is once again, learn the truth about the airport attack. And then when you actually go and look at the image, it's the same image that we saw before. Again, it's glitched. This is supposed to be the final piece of intel. And it shows the same picture from airport that we saw at the very beginning of the season but this time it shows blue enemies. It says blue on blue attack. Now, when you're looking at the radar, a blue enemy isn't an enemy. It's supposed to be a teammate. So what exactly does this mean? This is where the story of this piece of intel actually comes in. So the story for this intel actually begins at the 6th piece of intel in the Fractured Intel missions. So this one says, Signals Intelligence decrypted a message after the attack, of course talking about the attack on the airport. And when you view this intel, you see the exact same picture that we just looked at. However, the soldiers that you see are red on the UAV. What this means is that these soldiers were enemies. And based off of the entire first piece of intel, this whole thing, you find out that Alcatala soldiers actually planned the attack on the airport, or at least so we thought. Until this intel called New Perspectives, where you find out the truth of the airport attack when you see this image. What this tells us is that the original attack on the airport at the very beginning of the Verdansk War was actually taken out by Armistice soldiers, aka supposedly the good guys. Now, there's actually a lot more to this than meets the eye. Now, we shouldn't really be surprised by this whatsoever, because at the beginning of Season 3, when Ghost was added, we found out that Armistice had fallen and that Coalition and Allegiance soldiers were fighting against each other, just like the Zakhaevs planned. So we already know that they're turning on each other.
The Armistice in Verdansk is officially fallen. It's bloody chaos. Tell me something I don't know.
However, via the last intel, we actually know a lot more information about this. Now, the third intel, the one to come out before this, was called Hidden Cargo, and it was all about a piece of cargo that was on the 1930 Express from Urzikstan. Originally, Armistice was getting this delivered. However, the Zakhaevs had other plans. They derailed the train in Urzikstan that, as we find out by the end of this, was carrying chem bio weapons. Now, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, because as we find out by the third piece of intel, people that were working at port were paid off by the Zakhaevs. As you can see, the Imran Arms logo is on this bundle of money. So these soldiers were paid off to take care of this cargo container and hide it from Armistice soldiers. Now, at this point, we didn't know who these soldiers who were paid off were until Mara's debrief at the very end of this intel. In this debrief, we find out that Coalition and Allegiance soldiers led an attack on her at port. And the Coalition and Allegiance soldiers were working together against Armistice soldiers. What this tells us is that both Coalition and Allegiance soldiers have been paid off by assumably the Zakhaevs to work against Armistice. So, what this tells us is that a bunch of these soldiers that we know and love are actually working for the opposition. So some of these operators actually aren't good guys. Now, it goes even deeper than this, because recently we've been getting Season 5 teasers, and we are going to be talking about these in a lot more depth later today. However, one of the things about these teasers is that the people who received them received a rook alongside them, and this rook was sent to them by Shadow Company. And as you guys may or may not know, the rook is actually the logo for Shadow Company that, as we know, is run by General Shepard. The thing with Shadow Company is that all of these soldiers are paid for mercenaries. And as we just talked about, Allegiance and Coalition soldiers were paid off in the previous bit of intel. But it actually goes deeper than this, because if we actually look at Mace, as we've talked about before, he has a Shadow Company logo on him. So we know he's a part of Shadow Company. And if we read his description, we find out that he is indeed a mercenary for hire. It literally says it right in his bio. Now, other characters have similar things in their bio. For example, if we look at Grinch, you can see in his bio that it specifically says that his services are in exchange for a wire transfer to an anonymous offshore account. So it looks like Grinch is also a little bit sketchy as well. Now, I've looked through a lot of the operators, and I'm not sure which other operators are going to be working for Shadow Company or working for the Zakhaevs. This is where I'm going to leave it to you guys. Which characters do you think are mercenaries for hire, working for Shadow Company, or working for the Zakhaevs? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and maybe I'll bring up another video in the future talking about which operators are actually the bad guys. But that's all for this video. That is the story of this piece of hidden intel. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed, it is always appreciated if you do hit that like button. And of course, if you like what you see here, want to stay up to date on all my videos, we have a ton of new news coming with Season 5 and hopefully some Call of Duty 2020 news. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, have notifications on. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace out.
We are